So my name is Heather Stewart. I am, I guess, passionate about civil rights and education. So those are my passions. Those are what I work towards. And also, I am a founding member of the Walk as One um, nonprofit, which is for people with the disease that I happen to have, ankylosing spondylitis.
Awesome. You want to tell me a little bit more about that?
About ankylosing spondylitis.
Yeah.
Ankylosing spondylitis is an autoimmune arthritis where eventually your bones fuse together.
Mm.
So it's degenerative. It doesn't get any better. It can affect um, not only your joints, all of your joints, but your heart and your lungs and your eyes.
Mm. And you do some.
I am the vice president of the nonprofit Walk as One, which is a new role for me. I was part of like I said, the founding members of the board. So now I'm vice president of the board, and we are currently doing a duck fundraiser. So anybody wants to buy a duck, I'm happy to sell one.
Okay, good to know. What
Yes.
is some? What is some of the work that you do with that organization?
So we have an annual walk, which is what we do mainly, and so what we do is we count steps rather than having an actual physical walk where everybody walks a 3.2 miles or whatever it is. We do everybody counts their steps. And while you're counting your steps, you're raising awareness. You're telling people about the disease and how it affects you. It takes on average about 10 years for people to be diagnosed with the disease, which means 10 years of not keeping it under control, 10 years of it being degenerative and not being able to get it under control and function. So once you get it under control, then it's under control. It doesn't go away, but it's under control, and you can function. You can do other things. We have famous people who have this disease. There are over 33 million people with it, but most people don't know about it. So famous people like Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons, Alicia Graf Mack, who's a ballerina, and there's some baseball players and so on. So
Thank you for sharing
no
that.
problem.
Wow. How do we get involved? Is there a website?
There is a website, walkasone.org.
Okay. Thank you for
No
sharing.
problem.
Um, Tell me about civil rights, your civil rights activism, and what you're passionate about currently with regard to civil rights, if you would.
Well, currently I'm working with Anti Racist in Enfield, which is a local group and of like minded individuals who decided to get together and discuss racism and try to figure out what we can do to make Enfield a more welcoming community. Now, I've lived here my entire life in this house, and I have fought racism my entire life. So I've been in from people trying to burn down my house since
Mm.
when I was 4, to going to school and being the only black student at the local elementary school, to fighting for my sister and my brother so that they could go and be open enrolled and they didn't have to attend that school. So, and I've gone through high school, I've done research, basically basic research when I was in high school, say, talking about adding curriculum, adding history, African American history to the curriculum, and interviewing teachers and students alike, and going on. And then, as a college student, I talked about um, African American males because I had noticed that my classmates had disappeared. My African American male classmates had disappeared from the classroom, and I didn't know where they were, and so I wanted to know what I could do to bring them back.
Um, Thank you. Thank you. Wow, it sounds like you have quite a history and you have a lifetime of this work and really being passionate about it. What are some of the current injustices or crises that you're noticing needing attention? And just give me any thoughts that you have and any ideas of how we can begin addressing some things that we're seeing currently.
Well, some of the things that we're seeing currently: Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
We have way too many people of color who are dying at the hands of police officers. Just way too many. I mean, given the nature of the job, we understand that there's some, but there's just too many, and unarmed men and men who and women like Breonna Taylor who is in her bed. You know, there's uh, she a parole officer in Shenango who is killed. It's just unspeakable things. And so, how do we address that? We talk about police reform. We talk about bail reform. We talk about all of the reform of the criminal justice system in and of itself. Uh, we also start young, start with elementary schools, get people understand the students, have the students understand. Sorry, that um, people who look different from them are fine. You know, there's nothing really wrong with that. They can be different, whether it be disabilities or abilities or skin color or age or whatever, sexual orientation doesn't matter. You know, everybody are still human. So those are the things that I think that we should do. Um, I personally, with anti-racist in Enfield, that's what I'm working towards. Is working with the local elementary school and working with the librarian and getting more images and things into that school so that they can see more people that look like me in that school rather than who don't look like me.
That's beautiful. Thank you for doing that. Um, in terms of youth, uh, how important is it that young people, that we really focus some of this energy on young people, and what are the opportunities that you see in youth development in terms of our future?
I think it's very important that our youth get involved. I mean, um, there's a they have this sense of everything is fine, everything is hunky dory, but when something happens like George Floyd or Breonna Taylor, they don't know what to do with that. They don't know how to process that. So if you explain to them early on that yes, there are these differences, yes, there are these problems, and we're trying to fix them, and you can help by reaching out a hand to somebody who looks different, who acts different, or is somehow different than you, then that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And as they grow into adults, they learn that, and then they can take that with them wherever they go.
Mm-hmm. It's good. So this documentary or little video project that we're doing is called Room to Breathe, and we're calling it that because we're noticing that there's multiple crises in play currently that have to do with human breath, from climate change and the quality of our air, to systemic and predatory policing, where people literally being choked and asphyxiated to death. And all the ways that our health is being affected by systemic oppression, and how COVID-19 having to do with upper respiratory
Mm-hmm.
disease, and how that is overly affecting communities of color because of poverty and health issues. How do you see human breath coming into play in some of the work that you're involved in, and how just basic human rights, being able to take a breath being one of them, are uh, being put into a critical and something that we can't rely on, basically.
So when I thought about this, I said, um, we I think about the way I told people when I was younger, like if you don't take a breath, you will be made to take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't taking a breath. We were not. We had all of these problems, and nobody was taking a breath to address them. And so we are being made to take a breath with COVID-19. We have to stop. We had to stop and reset and rethink. And in doing so, we people were able to focus on things that they had been put off to the wayside. Like people who wanted to get involved with the Poor People's Campaign, all of a sudden they have time. People who wanted to get involved with Black Lives Matter and address the issues of police reform, all of a sudden they have time because they're forced to take this breath. Even I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, you know, even we as inter- people who have are been friends for 5 6 years, we were forced to take a breath and reevaluate how we communicate with each other and how what we do with each other and finding out things about our lives that we didn't know. I have friends of mine, like I said, who've been together 5 6 years, and all of a sudden they're like, "I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you could do that." And it's like, well, yeah, I learned this at some point in time during my life, and it was what I asked. I have the same thing with them. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that was possible. Yes. So we were given that room to breathe. We were given
Mm.
that at the same time. Now we have time to focus on those other things. We can focus on climate change. We can focus whatever you're passionate about. That's that. This is your room to breathe. This is where you are breathing.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Sure.
What are the opportunities? It sounds like you've really taken advantage of the opportunity to stop down and deepen those relationships and really invest your time in worthy social justice activities that you've been doing, but probably have more time to do now. What is the takeaway for the rest of humanity? How should we be, or how could we be engaging more healthfully and taking those breaths that we need to?
I'd say take the time. Find it in your schedule, whether it's 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and take the time it takes for you to do something. Make a phone call, send a text, um, a Facebook message. Somebody sent me a message yesterday and said, you know, I'm taking time now to reach out because you're on my list and I want to talk to you. And I said, oh, that's great. You know, hi, how are you? How have you been? So it's just take those few minutes, engage, find whatever you can to engage. Phone bank, donate to a food pantry. Go to we have the food cupboards across town or around the county. Go ahead and donate there. Do whatever little piece that you can do as you slowly as we reopen and re-engage, but still find that time. Find time to read 5 minutes of a book or whatever.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much
You're
for your
welcome.
time.